Hello everyone, it is Pelicandude, and I am playing Kerbal Space Program. So welcome to the first episode in what will hopefully be a successful series of solar system exploration with a colony on Duna and all that other various stuff. So, in case you've been living under a rock and have no idea what this game is, this is Kerbal Space Program, a game where you design and fly rockets of your own imagination. So this is the vehicle assembly building. This is where you build your rockets, and as you can see, we do not have very many parts available to us yet because this is science mode, and we have to do science to unlock more parts. So we're just going to start out, and we have this incredibly basic capsule. You know, nothing special about it. It holds one of our little Kerbals. We can see them down here. They have very large heads for their bodies. And they are our crew, and, well, they make up the population of this planet, Kerbin. And we will use them to go all over the place, such as to the moon, and to all sorts of little planets in our solar system. So first off, we need a parachute. That's what that little thing on the top is. And then we're going to name our glorious spacecraft the Spacey MK1 in honor of House of Cards, of course. And nothing to do with a perhaps similar sounding space-related thing that perhaps replaces the Y with another common algebraic term. But yes, that is irrelevant. So first of all, we need to give our rocket some fuel, and then we'll put on some antennas so that way we can transmit back to base. There will be no reverting of flights in this game. If we screw up, then we screw up. That's simply the way that it was going to be. And yeah, here's our first rocket. This, interesting to point out, this parachute will not be enough to slow down the mass of this whole thing, so we'll actually have to keep a little bit of fuel left over for us to use the engine to soft land. But the parachute will help. And with that, let's light this candle. So first things first, let's do a crew report from the launch pad to get some basic science. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is I decided, one of the things I've decided to do here in order to essentially make it where this series is a little bit more unique in the grand scheme of things, and it's not just another Kerbal Space Program series, is that we're going to have military contracts. So every third episode, to justify why the government is paying for our glorious space center here and all these rocket launches, we will have a military contract that we need to complete in order to continue our space quest. So essentially, I have a Word document where I've typed up the description and the purpose for a couple different military vehicles, and I will roll a dice every third episode to see which one I have to figure out how to build. And if you guys have an idea for a military vessel or a satellite or an aircraft or a vehicle, land vehicle of some type that you want to see built in the game, as long as it's not too preposterous compared to the parts that I have unlocked, I will try and build it. And so you could have a design that was inspired by you featured on this show. And as you can see, I actually do have BD Armory installed. There's no weapons on this ship, obviously, but I do have BD Armory installed on this particular KSP file here. And so I will actually be able to put working weapon systems on the various military craft. So that should be fun. But with that, let us launch our first rocket here. So we press Z for max throttle in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? There we go. Right, forgot to actually turn on the rocket engine. That was awkward. Alright, so let's do another crew report while flying over Kerbin Shores and go ahead and transmit that. As you can see, we're regenerating electricity as we fly upwards through the atmosphere. Keep an eye on our resources. We do not want to be particularly running out of fuel. Like I said, we need some fuel left over in order to do a soft landing in this thing. So we're going to cut it off at about 20 units of fuel. And there we go. We have more than enough momentum to carry us upwards all the way to the upper atmosphere where we will be performing a final crew report. Well, not final, hopefully. That would be a bit problematic. But one more crew report for this flight, so we'll go ahead and transmit that as well. And then as we slow down, we're going to attempt to do a EVA report at Apoaps at the highest point in our trajectory. And things should be interesting. So yeah, we have a fairly successful looking basic launch vehicle here. You know, it's not particularly impressive. It's not going to be getting into orbit. It's not even going to be going on a suborbital trajectory, but it certainly is able to give us some nice science for the first flight of our space program. So, you know, as long as Jebediah here gets home safely, I think we can consider it a success. We get a good look at the abandoned Air Force base over there on that island. Perhaps that will be the location that we might have to deliver some of our military vehicles that we make for military contracts to. We come down here. It looks like we're going to be landing right in the middle of the Space Center. Well, this is interesting. Yeah, let's go ahead and pop the parachute and turn off stability assist. Yes, we will be landing. Thankfully, it looks like we're not actually going to be landing on top of any of the buildings. So this will be really extremely convenient. You know, this will be an extremely easy spacecraft for our engineers and our recovery team to pick up. You know, this is quite great. I think, you know, if we could plan every space mission like this, the space travel would be quite cheap. You know, I guess that's kind of what SpaceX is trying to do with their whole Falcon 9R, but, you know, this would be quite incredible. There's a spaceplane hangar, and what do you know, we're actually going to be landing right next to the astronaut complex. And almost a flawless touchdown there. Look at that. That was beautiful. Impacting it just over a meter per second, well within the tolerances of our rocket. So let's go ahead and see if we can do any more science while we're here. So let's do a crew report. Where are we from? Yes, this is our space center. We're home. Very informative, I'm sure. Jebediah, look at him. He was just doing some little clappy, dancey thing. Oh, and he falls down, thankfully. He does not appear injured. We're going to go ahead and take a surface sample. Oh, wow, this substance is what makes the scientists yell at us when we go into the labs without cleaning our boots first. I'm sure that'll be very informative. It will spare lots of Kerbans from being yelled at. I don't think a spacesuit was entirely necessary to get here, was it? Well, it is a space center, so maybe you have to be wearing a space suit when you're walking in the space center. You know, just think about it a little bit, Jebediah, before you make these claims. And you know, let's go ahead and let's plant a flag in commemoration of our first happy landing. Well, our first landing in general, regardless of whether it was happy or not. And this will no doubt be an accomplishment of the Kerbal people. First, well, landing site of the first Kerbal rocket. An historic site, no doubt. We are quite lucky that we didn't set any of the buildings on fire. So there we go. First mission completed. Jebediah looking quite happy with himself. Let's pack up here. So we got to recover Jebediah and the vessel separately, unfortunately, because there's no way Jebediah is getting back in that rocket. But that's okay. So let's go ahead and recover the Spacey Mk1. And we're up to about 40 science. not terrible. So, alright, let's go ahead. And first of all, let's go to the astronaut complex and hire a bunch more astronauts. There we go. Because, you know, we don't want to just keep launching Jebediah over and over again, because I'm sure that, you know, there'd be some union lawsuit about how we're overworking our employees or something like that. Plus, if one of our rockets gets horribly destroyed, we don't necessarily want to lose Jebediah. You know, he's a bit of an iconic figure in Kerbal Space Program lore, and it would be a shame if he were to be killed in the explosion of some experimental rocket. So let's go. Let's, you know, for our next flight, we really should be attempting to break the atmosphere, which will be immensely more useful now that we can actually stage things. So we'll go ahead and we'll get rid of that, and we'll make the Spacey MK2. You know, at the end of this series, after we finish exploring the solar system, I think it'll be fun. We'll be able to look back at all the various rockets that we have had over the course of this thing, and marvel at how far we managed to come. So let's go ahead and, you know, we don't have any radial decouplers, so everything has to be in line right now, but I think we will still we'll be able to definitely get on a solid suborbital trajectory even still. So we'll go ahead and put an LTV 45 on here. I do not think we have any fins yet, no. And then one more decoupler and one of these big boosters. So there we go. This is our very tall Spacey MK2. We actually want to put on a couple of scientific instruments because we actually have the capacity to do that now. We did not previously have these. So they will prove most useful, I'm sure, when it comes to exploring the space around our planet. And because I'm a little bit OCD, we're going to go ahead and rotate the antennas so that way they look nice. There we go. That looks like a fairly decent way to have our antennas. And for our crew, Jebediah, you know, he's already had his flight. So who's a pilot? Oh, Billy Bobless Kermlin. You know, it's like that's the best of both worlds. We could have sent Bill and Bob, but let's send Billy Boblos. You know, that seems quite reasonable. So Billy Boblos, you will in fact be the first Kerbal to go to space. You know, Jebediah, he managed to make it up to the upper atmosphere, no doubt, setting some altitude records up there at over 30 kilometers of altitude. But you, my friend, you shall be the first Kerbal to go all the way to space. And there we go, that solid rocket booster straining against the rest of the spacecraft, not providing a particularly fast takeoff, but you know, it will let us get a little bit higher than we otherwise could, and every little bit of delta V helps, so why not? So first off, you know, we'll go ahead and do a mystery goo report once we get to the upper atmosphere, and then one more once, of course, we get into space. So as we pass, we're passing 2 kilometers now at T plus 35 seconds. We're going to try and angle the rocket a little bit over to the side, just a tad. And it looks like we're going to burn out this SRB at about 4 kilometers. Yep. So jettison that and fire the liquid fuel stage, leaving behind that SRB to fall back to the planet's surface and explode, and hopefully not break anything when it lands. That would be quite unfortunate if that were to occur, of course. So we're going to slightly angle over, not much, but just slightly, because we're going to land in the ocean probably with this craft, and we're going to wait until we get to about 20 kilometers, and there we can see the good old moon hanging in the sky. We shall be visiting you in the future, no doubt. Yes, it looks like that we managed to get far enough away from that spent solid rocket booster that looks like it has despawned out of the world and likely did not hit anything or damage anything on the launch pad. You know, this rocket, there's like a solid chance that this thing might get into orbit. I don't think so, but you know, maybe. I didn't really check the Delta V at all. I should probably install Kerbal Engineer now that I'm thinking about it, because I do not have that installed at present, nor do I have MechJab. And both of those things could prove quite helpful in certain situations, like especially MechJab, if one of our assignments is to make like an unmanned drone for the military, that could prove useful. Let's see how far we get into, you know, an orbital trajectory. I still don't know if we have quite the Delta V in the spacecraft that we could actually get, you know, a decent orbital trajectory, or an actual orbit, I should say. But, you know, we can at least try. We've definitely gone higher than we did before. So here we go. Let's do our mystery goo report from the upper atmosphere. Yep, and the goo seems to be getting very cold now. Informative. Let's take a look. Our apoapse is going to be 112 kilometers. Useful to know. So as soon as we get into space, we're going to start burning. So there we are. We are in space. Billy Bobless Kerman, you are the first Kerbal in space. How does it feel? Yes, it seems that we are very much in space right now. The sky seems to be mostly below us. Very informative. I'm sure our scientists will treasure this information. And the goo seems to have clumped into a sphere. It also appears to have become brittle. So we have an observation of the mystery goo unit. And we'll go ahead and do an EVA. You know, doing EVAs on our very first space mission, of course. You know, as opposed to those silly NASA blokes who, they took many missions in order to figure out whether they should do a EVA or not. We're just going to straight up do it on our first try. What do you say to that, NASA? You and your fancy science. Alright. So, we're going to have... I don't know. We might be able to get into orbit with this thing. That's very interesting. I totally was not expecting to do that. But, you know, it'd be kind of cool if we did. Oh, just as a future note for everyone watching, this entire first episode is going to be done live. We're not going to have any editing. However, in future episodes, since Kerbal Space Program does inevitably take a long time to do certain things, we are going to definitely be having some editing in the future, so that way you don't have to sit through entire missions of me doing things, because that would no doubt get rather boring rather quickly. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to, yeah, we will definitely get into orbit at this rate. So let's zoom up to apoapse. We'll fire prograde again. And come on, I know you're there. Come on. Oh! And there's our periapse. Get our periapse up to about 100 or so. Yeah, there we go. 140. You know, it's not a perfect orbit, but we were not even expecting to get into orbit at all on this first try, so I think that we should count it as a victory. So let's try and get a couple crew reports or EVA reports, you know, as we fly over these various things. Kerbin's water, we already have that one, I believe. Kerbin's grasslands, yep, we should store that. We can get all kinds of science by doing EVA reports over different biomes. Yep, Kerbin's shores, good, that's a hard one to get. From space anyway. Kerbin's water again, there's like a cool little formation. You can't see it because it's nighttime, but you see how you can kind of vaguely make out the way that there's like this peninsula here that we just flew over. Kerbin's water again, so we're gonna go ahead. I know there's a desert in the future that we will encounter. Maybe we'll be able to get mountains or highlands from this formation. Oh, and we've fallen off the spacecraft. Oh, Kerbin shores again. And thankfully we have this little handy dandy jet RCS pack type thing. Grasslands, already have that one. Grasslands. Highlands, yes. Useful. We have headlights on our astronaut. We do not have any lights on the spacecraft, but you know, in the future we'll be able to unlock the technology to make those exotic contraptions known as lights on our spacecraft, right? Because, you know, that is a very difficult thing to do, I'm sure. And, yeah, we don't want to get too ambitious. Like I said, we don't want this episode lasting too long. So we're just going to zoom over. As we fly over the desert, which we should be able to see fairly soon here, we'll do another EVA report. Oh, we might be able to... I think those are just highlands. They don't count as mountains. So we'll fly over to the desert here. Here we go, at the desert. And we'll do another EVA report. For some reason he's spinning. I don't know why. But we will get plenty of science from this mission, thankfully. Which that'll be really great. I personally like to set it as a goal for myself to try and get as much science as possible per mission. And with that, let us deorbit ourselves. You know, this won't be the most efficient deorbit burn necessarily, but, you know, it'll work. So we'll drop the orbit to about there. That should bring us down fairly close to the Space Center. So let's go ahead and time warp. As we fall, we might be able to get a EVA report while in space over Kerbal's mountains. Maybe. Oh, we got it! Yes! Lucky first try, eh? Alright, that was excellent. That was excellent. Alright, it should be noted, by the way, that I'm not much of a scientist, so we'll just burn up the rest of our fuel here while we're over the Space Center. We won't actually be landing particularly close to it, but we might as well use up the rest of our fuel. It's not like we're going to be able to reuse it anyway. I mean, we have this issue, of course, that, you know, this rocket engine is just going to drop right into the ocean. It will not be reusable, so we're just gonna... The only thing that's gonna be reusable about the spacecraft is, of course, the capsule. So might as well kill off as much of our velocity as we can. We're technically within the atmosphere now, and using up the last dregs of the fuel. And there we go, and we're gonna go ahead and decouple from that and turn off the stability unit because we don't need it anymore, and say goodbye to that little engine that managed to get us all the way into orbit without even really meaning to. That was quite an excellent first space flight, if you ask me. So we're going to accelerate time a little bit as we fall. We can assume that there is a vessel of the Kerbal Navy, I'm sure, here to pick us up. We get our re-entry effects on the capsule as we burn through the atmosphere. And at about, like I said, about 2 kilometers is where I like to pop my chutes. So there we go. We're getting down close to 2 kilometers and open the chute. And now we can fairly well conclude that this will probably be a safe mission by the end of it, because, you know, I doubt anything bad will happen to Billy Bobulus. Oh, that was probably the sound of the booster. Oh, look, there's Minimus. That's Minimus over there. That is the smaller moon. It's basically like a captured comet of some type. And we will land in the ocean, and in fact, there's a bit more science that we can do. So let's do an EVA report. This counts as flying, technically. So we're going to keep the data, store it, and then we'll be able to do surface samples and EVA reports and recover the vessel for a whopping, drumroll please, 99 science. Excellent. I kind of wish we had broken 100. We could have done that if we had gotten a couple more EVA reports from over various biomes. But, you know, 99 is enough to satisfy me. That is an excellent first episode, I think. And with that, I think we will be ending this very first episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that you have a nice day.